Is This Love from Whitesnake's classic 1987 album. With the success of that album, the group's time had finally come, and they were able to establish themselves as one of the biggest rock acts in the world. Whitesnake was formed just over 10 years ago by ex-Deep Purple singer David Coverdale, and it has been his guiding hand that has brought the group to the position where it can be considered alongside all the other great masters of rock. Over the next hour, with the help of David Coverdale, we'll hear of Whitesnake's road to the top. I'm David Jensen. Join me for that. You're with Masters of Rock. Today, Whitesnake. David Coverdale joined Deep Purple in 1973 as the group's vocalist. But it wasn't till some 3 years later, following their breakup, that he decided to form Whitesnake. For David, Purple's split, when it came, was inevitable.
The only analogy I can give really is that in a band, it's very much like being married, you know. You get to know somebody very, very closely, and you either enjoy those people very much, the little idiosyncrasies and things in day-to-day living, and you like those things, and you continue staying together. Or, after living together on a concentrated basis, there's certain things that annoy you, and you have to make a decision, right, we stay together for the sake of the money, in terms of a group, or the child in terms of a marriage, or go your separate ways. I wasn't having a good time, so I got out.
Following Purple's breakup, contractual ties meant that it was over 2 years before he could form a group for recording and touring purposes. Much of that time he spent living in Munich, West Germany.
The situation was that I was contractually tied up to that huge Purple organisation, which was no longer a group, it was a huge company, a corporation. And considering it was built on 5 guys playing music, it turned into a huge warehouse company, conglomerate, industrial, you know what I mean? It was, and it's still going on. But it was coming out of that kind of thing was strange, because everybody had been led to believe that it was one huge family and everybody was the same and stuff like that. And I was left on the shelf, contractually in limbo for 2.5 years, denied live performance.
Today's Masters of Rock are Whitesnake. Contractual ties weren't the only thing hindering David Coverdale when he first formed the group. There was also the small problem of everyone's expectations.
Initially, a lot of people were expecting a kind of Deep Purple Chapter 10, which, although a lot of the music is similar, I didn't really want to restrict my writing or the musicians involved to just sort of high-powered rock and roll. Like, I love soul music and rhythm and blues music, and I wanted to try and get everything under a common umbrella where you can do anything. And if you pick up a Whitesnake album, there's going to be a common denominator of R&B or good physical rock and roll, but there's going to be a little more thought, a little more soul injected there. The only people who took notice were the kids, and those are the people I owe the debt to, and I hope never to let down. I owe very little allegiance to the media, because we were treated like some kind of bastard child coming out 10 years too late, when it was the kids in the theatres that we played in to sell out houses who were being treated or ignored. And I think we've been proved right.
David Coverdale has always been very aware of the responsibility that he owes to his audiences, and it's for that reason that he's made sure that Whitesnake never allows the music to become self-indulgent.
Yeah, I think that kind of self-indulgent business, if you're going to mess with that, you do it in concert, but don't forget the audience is sitting there or standing there wanting to be entertained. And I think the days of 20-minute swapping solos of musicians is gone, even though I find, and my musicians find, it's much more interesting if you do a solo within the context of a song. That's why we've got 10 tracks on the new album. That's not like quantity, give them as much as possible. They're good tunes, and the instrumentalists get the cookies off, within the concept and context of those songs.
When it comes to writing Whitesnake material, David Coverdale is more than happy to stick to the basic themes of rock and roll.
It's physical and emotional drama coupled with tongue-in-cheek humor. I would much prefer to hear this kind of thing, which it's always been the basic bed of rock and roll, is the sex exchange, the physical exchange and emotional exchange between an audience and the live musicians. And it's still interesting, totally interesting and passionately interesting for me to explore the theme of love. I admire people who use the stage or their careers as political platforms. It has never inspired me. Believe me, I have my political awareness because it's very necessary, very, very necessary. But it has never inspired me to write a love song about Maggie Thatcher or a blues about Ronald Reagan. I don't know. It's just not inspiring. It's so interesting, the chemistry between two people, how two people who love each other can kill each other at the same time, can elevate each other from something that a dog does on the sidewalk to Superman status. It's remarkable. I am fascinated by love. The exchange, totally. It crosses all borders, all colors. It embraces every facet of human nature, every angle of spirituality. No man is complete without a partner.
Give Me All Your Loving, a typical piece of Whitesnake power rock, something the group is so good at. But their style of music inevitably brings its comparisons. And the one that has dogged them the most is that at times their music bears a close resemblance to that of Led Zeppelin's. For example, on their latest album, Slip of the Tongue, it's been suggested that the track Judgment Day has overtones of Zeppelin's Kashmir. However, when David came to write the song, the farthest thing from his mind was a 13-year-old album track.
It was a situation where I had to have very serious medication. It compromised the American tour very substantially. This is like April 88, and I was laid up for 2 months. And I had to take a lot of these painkillers called Percodan, which is so mind-numbing, it's frightening. And I was getting so desperate being a patient. You know, I sent for my road rig, which has got tape decks in it and guitars and stuff. And I was so muted, I started doing this very labored, hypnotic, kind of insidious riff. You know, there was no melody there at all. And it's also a bit of the Bond theme as well, if you can whistle along with that. It suits the song, you know, it's that simple. I stand by the song. I think the song's probably superior to the original. And basically, Kashmir, if you go to Portugal at any time, put the radio on and you'll hear Moroccan radio, and it's 24 hours a day of that Kashmir stuff. It's all the same.
You're with Masters of Rock. Fool for Your Loving was first released by Whitesnake in 1980. But it's not a recording that David Coverdale is at all happy with nowadays.
If you listen to the original, it's pretty passionless, you know, the performance. Whitesnake, because of certain management agreements, had to do so much studio work. We'd have, if you remember, like 2 albums a year. And so consequently, a lot of stuff was written in the studio and not really explored and improved when we actually went live. You know, and unfortunately, it's a very important song to me. It was a song that said, you know, I actually got the nerve and the balls together to get up and leave a very negative relationship, because usually men are so weak and spineless, they'll sit in a sort of an unhappy corner going, just bleating about how unhappy they are and drinking a lot. And this song was a kind of get up and I've had it, that's your lot, I'm out of here. And the vocal's very secure, the blues vocal, but it's very light at the bottom and top heavy, I think. It's taken me over 10 years to find musicians who are as passionate about rock and blues as I am. Consequently, I'm going to probably be revisiting. So if it was up to me, if I had the time, I'd probably do the whole Whitesnake catalogue from beginning to end properly, as it deserves to be done. Because I've always worked very hard for good rock and roll songs. Whitesnake's always been, the concept of Whitesnake has always been a vehicle for good rock and roll songs, or hopefully good. And I hear certain songs which brutalize my soul, you know, why I accepted them in the first place, the performances. And now I've acquired these magnificent colleagues, you know, I asked them, you know, I'm not the dictator everybody paints this Dorian Gray portrait of. I asked them if they'd mind revisiting it and redusting it and redecorating it. And now you've got a very aggressive statement loaded with passion from beginning to end.
David Coverdale has now reached the kind of status in the rock world where other artists are keen to associate themselves with him. During a recent concert at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, Aerosmith invited him to join them on stage. He eventually agreed, and together they performed the Beatles' I'm Down.
My missus kept going, get up and do a number with Aerosmith. The invitation had come back, and I was really tired, and I was going, no. So then I'm in Ham Odeon, you know, there's a lot of ghosts tapping me on the shoulder going, go on, do it. I said, honestly, I'm so tired, I don't think I could even remember the lyrics to one of my own tunes. It was like just blank, you know. What they did, one of the girls, one of the wives of the band, called New Jersey and got somebody to look over the Beatles songbook, and she copied the lyrics down, then somebody wrote it on a huge board. I said, if I walk on stage with a board this size, I'm going to look like I'm advertising Sid's Sandwich Bar. So when the band had come off, somebody sneaked on and stuck this huge thing, you know, on the stage.
Fans around the world are eagerly awaiting Whitesnake's return to the concert platform to hear the new band perform material from the new album Slip of the Tongue. Slip of the Tongue, the title track from the latest Whitesnake album, and an album that looks well on its way to repeating the success of Whitesnake 1987. This only underlines David Coverdale's group's right in a career that stretches back over 10 years to be ranked along with all the other great masters of rock. You've been listening to a Capital Radio Ventures production. I'm David Jensen, thanking you for being with me over the last hour. And until we meet again, goodbye.